The Christmas season is upon us. I got a big old grin on my face. Sean Mapes, he's feeling that spirit as well. And you should too. You should too. We're going to do more of that. We're going to talk about Christmas movies. We're going to talk about Christmas music. Listen, the Texans have a bye week essentially on Sunday. They're playing the New York Jets. I'm willing to say that now. It just happened spontaneously, naturally. I'm willing to say that the Houston Texans should win on Sunday.
Wow. That's massive. Folks, for those listening, Paul has not done this at any point of the season, no matter what sorry team they've played. And he was right not to say it against the Panthers.
Or the Falcons.
I think we're gun shy. We didn't say about the Bucks, but like they honestly should have won the Bucks game.
Right.
Like there hasn't been a game the Texans have had an easy schedule, and there hasn't been a game where Paul's gone. They should win this game. It's all, if they win, great. If they lose, we'll be disappointed.
I was thinking about saying this, and then all of a sudden it just came out because of the Christmas spirit.
It's like saying I love you. It just kind of came out.
It just came out. It just came out. And look, it's because of the quarterback situation for the Jets more than anything, but it's also because the Texans are playing better. And because they are playing better, and because they are now back in the AFC South race, all of a sudden, they're part of the national conversation. And look, people don't talk about the Astros nationally. Remember going into the year, they're the defending World Series champions, and either Stephen A. or Mad Dog Russo didn't even have them as part of like the top 5 storylines going into the year. It was like the Chicago teams. Guess what? They both sucked. It was the Angels and Dodgers. The Angels sucked. The Dodgers didn't do anything. Shohei Ohtani got hurt before the end of the year. Mike Trout. The Mets sucked. Like it was the entire list was just wrong. And the Astros did what they always do. They still didn't get talked about, even though people hate them for being dirty, evil cheaters. We kind of like that they were dirty, evil cheaters because they won one title for us and they won 2 titles for us. And was the cheating the reason that they won? Probably not, but I just like that everyone's mad and hates them and is jealous. But the Texans are getting talked about nationally. So I thought we're going to start a new segment going forward. And I'll be honest, I hate these 5 words. I hate them. Comes from a movie, Apollo 13. It's based off of the true story of Apollo 13. It's this line by Tom Hanks that whenever bad things are happening to Houston sports team, you will see brought up by national media who, whenever I hear them say it, yeah, I want them to lose their vocal cords. Here's Tommy.
Houston, we have a problem.
So we're going to do a segment going forward. When the national media talks about Houston sports, we're going to play clips, and we will determine amongst ourselves whether or not we have a problem with what was said about our beloved Houston sports team. So, Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, Jeff Saturday. Yesterday, there was a roundtable discussion. It said on the top of the screen, Stroud proud. On the bottom of the screen, it said, Texans, AFC South champion possibilities? So let's just play some of the clips from that show, from that segment. Here is the first clip.
But I think you will agree with me that Trevor Lawrence's loss is a bigger loss than Nico Collins.
For sure. No, you mean for the
Jags.
I have a problem with this. Shannon Sharp isn't paying attention to the Texans. Shannon Sharp isn't paying attention.
What, all these wide receivers look the same to you?
Oh, yeah.
What the hell?
Damn, Shannon. Come on, dude.
You know what? I'm willing to I do have a problem with this, but I'm not gonna. Shannon Sharp can work his way back into
no, he can't.
The good grade. Oh, really?
He can't. No, come on. You can't F that up. You've been sitting around waiting to talk about the Texans in this round table.
See, that's why I don't think he was waiting to talk about the Texans. I think this is the first time he's had to learn any of these people's names.
Still, the segment begins, and I get it. He's had issues saying Stephen A. instead of Skip Bayless.
Yeah,
but
that too.
But come on, man. Like, get the injury right, okay? Nico Collins is still healthy. Tank Dell's the injured one. No, he's out. He's out. Houston, we have a problem with Shannon Sharp talking about the Houston Texans.
Okay.
What's the next clip that we have from this segment on First Take?
And it's going to be a different animal. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans, but part of it is emotional because I want to see C.J. Stroud. I mean, when you think about how bad this brother has already thrown over for over 3,500 yards, we know what he brings to the table. He's a baller, no question about that. Nico Collins is no joke. And by the way, that defense showed me something against Denver last week when Denver was driving downfield and they ended up intercepting Russell Wilson to preserve that victory. And so you look at things defensively, offensively, the coaching. You don't see, even though obviously they're on the come up and there are some weaknesses. You do have losses against Atlanta and Carolina by combined like 4 points or whatever, but you still lost to two of those teams. So that's not good. But in the end, when we look at Houston, since their 0-2 start, what are they, like 7-3 or something like that? And so I know I'm not ignoring the Colts. They've won 4 straight. Yeah. I'm just of the mindset that I'm looking at the Texans and I'm like, yo, C.J. Stroud, he's just that dude. And I think this time of year, those quarterbacks that are those dudes step up and get it done.
But here's the problem. Houston, we have to have a problem with that. It's C.J. Stroud. It's not C.J. Stroud. You hear at the very end of that? You want to play that little last clip there, Sean? Because he was doing so well. Like he said correct things, like they had some bad losses, and that the Colts are hanging around. But he didn't say C.J. Stroud correctly.
Texans, and I'm like, yo, C.J. Stroud, he's just that dude. And I think this time of year, those quarterbacks that are those dudes.
Why can't we get any respect? Why can't this city get any respect? Houston, we have a problem with that. We have a problem with that. But we like Stephen A. Smith, right? This show likes Stephen A. Smith. Other shows might not. I think Stephen A. Smith is the best entertainer in the sports world. He is who he is. And if you see a video of him talking about not sports and see how entertaining he can be, I know that is a person that I would like to get drunk with. So, Stephen A. Smith, you have a chance to save yourself on this see, look at me. I'm impersonating Stephen Smith.
Stephen Smith?
Stephen Smith.
It's so funny. Just side note, it sounds crazy just to say Stephen Smith.
It does, but he's got to earn the A back. He's got to earn the A back. I'm going to pretend that was done naturally. Stephen A. Smith.
In this segment where we're getting on people for misspeaking.
Right, because we're hypocrites, but we at least admit that we are. Stephen A., save yourself. Houston, do we have a problem with what he's about to say?
Give him some time.
You realize we're talking about C.J. Stroud, and in the past we talked about, man, he's got the potential to help them, offset or get over losing Deshaun Watson a few years ago. You're looking at him now like he's going to be better.
Surpassing. Ain't no doubt. Ain't no doubt.
For sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind.
We even got Jeff Saturday on board. Colts coaching legend.
I was going to say, I have a problem with Jeff Saturday for being a Colt. For being a Colt player and for being a Colt former HC.
You have a problem with Jeff Saturday's existence.
No, just
on that. No, not like as a human.
Yeah.
On that table.
When it comes to Houston Texans, I'm just like, get out of here.
I have a problem with Jeff Saturday stepping on Stephen A. Smith there.
He really did kind of like take the thunder from Stephen A. Smith.
Let Stephen A. Smith go.
Steve Smith.
Steve Smith Sr. is a wide receiver and an analyst for the NFL Network. Stephen A. Smith is a commentator known for his basketball reporting that now runs the show on First Take. So now you know the rest of the story. We actually have some more if you want to keep this segment going. Houston, do we have a problem? But I have no problem with the idea that Stroud is already on the way to making people forget about Deshaun Watson. Despite all of the pushback from people like Charles James and others online, former Houston Texan, I realized that Deshaun Watson was good when he played here, but this idea that Stroud hasn't been more impressive is just wrong. Partly because Watson got hurt his rookie year, but Watson was not once in his career a part of the MVP conversation. Watson's best year, the Texans went 4-12. Sorry, you're 4-12. You're not getting MVP in the NFL. This isn't baseball where you can have two MVPs on your team go finish in 4th place, 10 games under 500, and Mike Trout has 3 MVPs and Shohei Ohtani has 2. This isn't that. This is football. You got to win. That was Watson's best year. Stroud is doing things right now that Watson did not in terms of earning the respect of everybody. But Stephen A. Smith should have said his name correctly, even though that we are a show that mispronounces things all the time. And I say we, I'm really talking about me. I'm really talking about me. But I'm bringing Sean down with me. We're going to continue our Houston, do we have a problem segment here? Because the Texans are finally getting a little bit of national respect. A little bit, just a little bit. Dan Orlovsky, the Indianapolis Colts quarterback who I believe beat the Houston Texans back in 2011 when TJH was under center. We don't hold that against him, though, because Dan Orlovsky, do we have a problem with this take on CJ Stroud in a post-Tank Dell world?
Again, Tank Dell has had a special rookie year, but because of Nico Collins, Brown has been good, Mechie's had some moments, but mostly because how good Stroud is at all those little things, I still believe he's good enough to take who he has and get them into the playoffs.
Interesting that he mentioned Noah Brown there, because Brown did have that 2-week stretch with 325 yards receiving. And also, of course, Nico Collins has almost 300 yards receiving the last 2 weeks. I think it was at Texans Cap, Troy on Twitter, who brought up that there were a lot of throws that CJ Stroud could have made to a wide open Noah Brown, and I guess he just didn't have the time to make them. So maybe Noah Brown's going to step back up again. But I think right now, when you look at CJ Stroud going forward, I am willing to give him some benefit of the doubt in a post-Tank Dell world. I still think it's going to be hard, but I do not have a problem with Dan Orlovsky thinking that Stroud can make it work with these receivers.
Yes, I have a problem with Dan Orlovsky beating the 2011 Houston Texans. Yeah. Probably the best Texans team of all time.
I know.
A 2-14.
And he's the guy who ran out the back of the end zone, which is unfair to constantly hold against him. I enjoy his weirdness.
Yes.
He is very weird.
Yeah.
But that's cool. We are.
I also like RG3's weirdness. I like all these guys, and they're just. I like that ESPN was like, let's just get a couple weird NFL players.
Well, I like that they have. I mean, instead of basically keeping them in a box, like some places do, they've actually let them kind of grow into just being themselves, at least to a degree.
Yeah. I also agree with Orlovsky's point too that Stroud is good enough to. It's crazy for a guy who's a rookie, but I do think he can like kind of stomach the loss of Tank Dell and still be a workable offense. Like this isn't going to be like, oh my God, this sucks. It might suck for the Jets game because the Jets do have a good defense, and like Saleh says, they make every quarterback's life a living nightmare whenever they play them. And then they lose, but it's a nightmare for the quarterbacks. So I think this is probably going to be a tough game for Stroud, like numbers wise. But I think going forward, like I with this and with Trevor Lawrence's injury, I think like the AFC South is on the table.
And it's really going to be a matter of can Jacksonville lose one or two more? And I think the next couple of weeks. It's possible. I'd specifically point to that Sunday night game against the Baltimore Ravens coming up. One last one. Houston, do we have a problem with this? So Brandon Ally is the guy who founded the S2 test. He joined Pablo Torre on Pablo Torre's podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out. And in that podcast, he alleged shadiness when it comes to Stroud's test results, which everyone thought he was an idiot when they were released. He thinks that there might have been something behind that. Here is Ally with Torre explaining what happened.
Various front offices, including, by the way, the Panthers front office and ownership. David Tepper, the owner of the team, seems to be an analytics guy, put stock into S2. All of this stuff seems to be a way of decoding the intelligence and the likelihood of success as these various teams see it in these players.
Yeah.
Your response to just the tests that were leaked, just because I want to get it on the record here, is what? Because the 18 is like, that's a thing you guys are going to wear, seemingly, for all time.
We'll hear about it forever. And that's part of being in pro sports. Like, look, it's a tough business, right? And undoubtedly every year something negative comes out behind the draft, right? And we just happen to be on it this year. A low score doesn't mean you can't play, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to make it. A high score doesn't mean you're going to be an all-pro quarterback. We're more interested in how does CJ, how does Bryce process information. Nobody has a crystal ball.
Houston, do we have a problem with Brandon Ally and his tests that made CJ Stroud before the draft to all we basics out there based off of a test that none of us actually understand? Do we have a problem with Brandon Ally making CJ Stroud look like a dummy? That's a tricky question, Sean. You're thinking here. What do you say to that?
I want to say I don't have a problem with them because, like Pablo Torre pointed out, the Panthers are very big on the S2 test. And so that's what maybe sent it over the top. That and the very nice dinner that Bryce Young had with Tepper and the Brain Trust there, who have like all been fired now. That's what convinced the Panthers with the S2 test to draft Bryce Young, giving the Texans CJ Stroud. So no, great test. Great test from what's this guy's name?
Brandon Ally.
Brandon Ally. Great. Keep up the good work. I do not have a problem with you because your test is so bad.
I gotta say though, as someone who is now a very decided Proud Boy, like I legitimately
Stroud boy.
Shoot, my bad. Slip of the tongue. Where was I on January 6th? As someone
Tucker
who is an
Paul.
authentic,
All right.
hey, let me pull myself out of my radio grave. CJ Stroud, as somebody who is now a Stroud boy, I do hate that he had to go through that. I mean, even though it ended up with him going to the Houston Texans because of it, and good memory bringing up the Bryce Young dinner. I totally forgot about that because we roasted the hell out of that. I was stupid like that. That was covered. Like, well, Bryce Young, like, wow, he went from forks. He used the forks correctly. He had the salad fork for salad, and he used the inside fork for inside. That means he could be a starting quarterback in the NFL because he has decorum that would survive in England with British manners. But I feel for Stroud getting kind of raked through the coals for all of that. And if it ends up with him on the Texans, fine. But it is kind of BS for Ally to say, like, well, we don't have a crystal ball. Well, this test became a thing, and we just found out about it last year. And it was a subject of conversation before the draft for far too long. I don't get why we did it.
I do get the, like, this is a tool that people can use, da-da-da. But then also, like, I think the first time that, at least that the national media has heard of the S2 test was
right then,
this draft, and they at least appeared, or I won't even say they got it wrong when it comes to CJ versus Bryce. They definitely got it wrong when it came to evaluating CJ Stroud's decision making, because watching the Texans on Sundays, I think that CJ Stroud has good decision making. I think I can call that. I think he can make quick, good decisions.
And he's accurate with the ball, too.
Yeah, well, this S2 test doesn't measure accuracy.
But maybe we should have been more impressed by his combine that blew people away.
Who was it that was like, I think
McShay.
it was Daniel, or yeah, either McShay or Daniel Jeremiah was like, that was the best like throwing I've ever seen.
Whoa.